What's going on, guys? It's Red Bull Tanker, and welcome to an introduction to historical board gaming's the Korean War, or, um, or as the title is, Korea 625 War. So this is a game from historical board gaming centered around the Korean War. Um, don't know how long this has been out. Well, I guess from down here it's at 2008, so it's at least been something that's been kicking around since 2008, around that time period. Um, like I said, it's the Korean War, so this is definitely another new game for me. Definitely excited to give this a shot. So first, what you can see on the board is the initial setup. You have the whole Korean peninsula from the south to the north, and then you got a couple areas up here for China, and you have one little spot for the USSR. However, the Russians are not a part of this game, though I'm sure at some point I will create an expansion that could allow the Russians to come into the game. But so the factions for this game. So on the capitalist, we'll scroll in. On the capitalist side, we have the South Koreans in this sort of orangish brown color. I think the spray paint I bought said it was more orange, but it definitely was not the color I was really looking at getting. So you have the South Koreans in orange, you have the Americans, as always, in green, and then you have the United Nations in blue. Then over on the communist side, we have the North Koreans, who are going to be in the Russian maroon until I can get enough pieces to create my own North Korea team, which I'd probably do in like purple or something like that. And then we have the Chinese up here in their traditional red for Red China. Alright, so the game is broken up into 12 is broken down into 12 turns. And basically the overall objective of the game is by the end of the 12th turn, your side has to control more territory than the other. So pretty simplistic as far as how you win the game. You just gotta be the one who has the most territory by the end of the game. Let's see here. Some interesting new aspects to the game. This game involves supplies, and you need to have, at least from what I understand, you have to have one supply token in an area in order to move troops out and into an attack. So, like, to move all these forces in Seoul, whether on a non-combat or a combat, there has to be one supply token in that territory. And that goes the same for the North Koreans and the Chinese. The first thing I'll say after I got this game, so like when you go in historical board gaming and you buy the game, you just get the map file and then you got to go and print it out yourself. But they also give you all the add-ons, like all the playing aids for it. So like there's this reinforcement chart sort of thing, and then you got the calendar and IPC chart. The one thing that is a little confusing is that sometimes the rule book with the play aids for the different nations, sometimes how do I want to say it? There are some discrepancies between the two, and the rules are the rules on a couple things are a little confusing, but I think some of it is just supposed to be implied. So, like, the primary way to move supplies in this game is you have to build mechanized infantry units in order to move supplies. Or, if you're the Allies, you can also buy choppers, which I don't have. I haven't found anyone who has. I haven't found a Etsy store or historical board gaming. None of them have. I haven't seen anyone with the old MASH helicopters yet, so I'm just using some Blackhawks that I got from historical board gaming for Global War 85. So I'm just going to use those. But in some of the rules, it doesn't seem like but in the rule book, it doesn't seem like, well, not the rule book, from the play aids, it doesn't seem like North Korea, China, or South Korea can buy mechanized infantry units, which historically makes sense. But then the question is, so do those three teams need supplies in order to move their forces? Which, I mean, if it's going to be that for the Allies, it's got to be that for them. So I'm just going to play that like they have to as well, or at least, I guess not so much for South Korea, because from what I understand is that your allies can benefit. Like, even if you're the United States and you buy supplies, I think an ally can also use that supplies as well, as long as the supplies are there. I think supplies can be shared. So not so much the mech infantry for South Korea, even though I'm still going to play that South Korea can buy mech infantry, but then North Korea and China will also be able to buy mechanized infantry as well. Like I said, I know that's not entirely historically accurate, because I know that, at least for the supply situation for China and North Korea during the Korean War, they were carrying a lot of the supplies by hand, or on their backs, whereas down here in the South it was more mechanized in that sense. But playing with supplies is definitely going to be interesting. I'm using supply tokens from Axis and Allies Guadalcanal. I just picked that up too, and I gotta eventually do a playthrough series on that one as well. But I'm using the supply tokens from that game for the supplies here. As always, I always like to play with the historical board gaming division markers. So I've pulled out the initial divisions that all fought during the Korean War. So we have, the first Marine Division, the first Armored Division, the 2nd Infantry Division, the 3rd, the 7th. You also got the 40th and the 45th. Oh, there's a glare. The 40th and the 45th. And then already on the board, we have the 24th Infantry Division, which was one of the first American units to reach Korea, because they were over in Japan at the time that the war started. And then down here in Busan, we have the 25th Infantry Division as well. And then in case we need anything, the U.S. 8th Army was the major U.S. Army command that was in Korea during the war. And I do believe 8th Army to this day still is headquartered here in South Korea, with American and South Korean forces. But yeah, so that's just a quick sort of overview of the game. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of trial and error with this, because there are some inconsistencies between the rule book and the play aids. But we will try to motor through it, and hopefully, I have hopes that this is, I really hope this is going to be a fun one. I think it'll be a fun one. And then in my mind, I'm already thinking of other ideas, other games that I can create out of just using this, map. So I really look forward to some of the other kind of creative things that can possibly be done with this game. Is there anything else? Oh, I suppose I should note, gameplay wise in general, all the rules, basically the rules for this game, like, you're basically playing it based the majority of global 1940 rules for all the units, and how you do your how you do turn sequences, all that stuff. Some unit stuff has changed. One thing that I find interesting is that, like, artillery can do attacks into other zones. I know that's been incorporated in other global war games. So artillery firing into another territory hits on a 2 or less. However, say there were North Koreans here and this American infantry and artillery wanted to attack. If they went into the attack, this artillery would get reduced to a hitting on a 1 instead of a 2. So the artillery would hit on a 1, but the U.S. infantry would still get the +1 for having artillery support. And also with this game, infantry will gain a +1 if they're paired with a tank. Other things different with this game. This game does not include tactical bombers or cruisers. Battleships still get shore bombardments, but those bombardments hit on a 2 and not a 4 like in other games. That's definitely some of the bigger differences with this game. Also, too, tanks do not get a blitz in this game. Tanks only can move one space. And it does make sense because the geography of Korea just does not in actuality, the geography of Korea really would not allow for mechanized units to really blitz. So even with tanks, you're only going one space no matter what, even on non-combat. So that's going to be something that's going to be a little touch and go at first, trying to remember that tanks don't get their special blitz ability anymore. But so that is it for now. As always, my good friend Airsoft Commando will be joining me in this venture. We haven't decided who is going to play who yet, but we do hope to start on Tuesday. Enjoy the nice, at least enjoy the nice Labor Day weekend before we get back into the business of killing plastic pieces. So that is going to be it for now, guys, and I will hopefully have a video for you guys in a couple days. So until then, guys, as always, take care.